Hi everyone, we are excited to have you here in today's fun-filled learning session at YOLO. Here is a quick look at how you can submit your work after the class. As a first step, go to live.yolo.com. You can use any browser to access this site. On this page, you will see a list of all our classes. Scroll down and you can see the Submit Your Work button. And then you will see a list of the classes that you've last attended, which could, for example, show the dance or craft or science experiment classes you've attended recently. Next, it will show you the list of children whose names are registered in this mobile number. Choose your name from this list to submit your work. For instance, if you are Satvik Kumar, choose that name. And then choose the class for which you would like to make your submission. For example, if you've attended the New Year's Masquerade Party session and you'd like to make the submission for this class, click on the Submit Your Work button below that. And then upload the photo you've taken. Choose the image from your phone and click Submit. You can scroll down and view all your past submissions and see how many of your friends or peers have liked your work. You can also see others' work and like their work to inspire your friends. If you want to showcase your work on social media, that too is very simple. Click on Share, copy the link and post it on Instagram or Facebook or any other platform of your choice. Just a tiny reminder, your submission looks a lot better if you could click a photo in the landscape mode rather than the portrait mode. Do not forget to tag us at YOLO_app. I'm eagerly looking forward to all your submissions right after this class.
Hey guys, hello, hi everybody. I hope all of y'all are doing extremely well and also enjoying all the hobby classes on YOLO. We just shared the submission process with y'all. So I also hope that you all have followed the process in case you have joined in late and missed out on the process. Don't worry, we'll just play it again towards the end of this class. So, we are together here for yet another class of our Mandala Technique course, and this is precisely the last class of this course. And it it has been an amazing journey till now in terms of the submissions that you all have made, and also in terms of the number of participants that I had in this course altogether. So I'm extremely happy to see all of my talented bunch of people here attending all the classes on YOLO and making their submissions on time and also having fun time together. Yes, okay. So again, I hope all of y'all are ready with your art materials and all excited for today's fun activity. Yes, so I need quick thumbs ups coming in the chat section if you're ready with your art materials and all set to get started for today's class. I need the thumbs ups coming in quickly. Yes, the chat section, I need the thumbs up coming in that yes, we're all set for today's class. We're all excited for today's class. And then I'll just quickly share my screen and then we can just get started. You already know the drill. We all discussed the art materials very much in detail. So don't worry. I'll quickly share the screen and then we can just get started. Okay. So I hope you can see the screen now. And I also see so many of you giving me thumbs up that yes, ma'am, we are ready and let's get started with today's class. So let us all dive into the fun activity and there we go. So first, let us discuss the art materials. Number one, we need an A5 size white paper. So this is an A5 size white paper. Again, if you have an A4 size white paper, just cut it into half and you will have an A5 size of white paper. In case you don't have a white sheet, you can also use a colored sheet if you want. And in case you don't have any of these, you can just simply tear paper from your notebook and make use of that as well. Okay, so That's the first material, the paper. The second that we need is these watercolor paints. I have these watercolor paints over here. So any brand of watercolors would be fine. Even if you have one single shade of watercolor, that would be fine as well. Okay, so any color, just one single color of watercolor paint, if you have, that's totally fine as well. So these are the watercolor paints. In case you don't have watercolor paints, you can also use poster paints if you want. So that's totally fine. As far as possible, please make use of paints. So that's a new medium that we are going to explore in today's class. But in case you are not able to find any kind of paints, you can just go ahead with your simple pencil crayons or normal crayons and do the same activity together. Okay, so that's the second material. The third that we need is a paintbrush. So any size, any number would totally work. If you don't have a round brush, if you have a flat brush, that would totally be fine as well. Okay, if you're using paints, you also need a paintbrush this time. So any size of it, either flat brush or round brush, that would be totally fine as well. Okay. And then in case you're using paints, we also need a container with water. So just a little bit of water, half a glass of water, just in the container. Next, you need a circular object. So here I'm just using a tape roll over here, but you can also use a bowl from your home, a simple bowl from your home, or a tiny plate that you have, a simple plate or a saucer if you want. So any kind of circular object, a little larger, not it could be up till your mama's bangle size. So something up till there or even slightly larger than that would totally be fine. So something which is circular in shape and something which is of size of your mama's bangle, that would totally work. Or you can also use a rounder. Okay, so in case you're not able to find a circular object, I think that would be possible for you to find a circular object at your place. But in case you're not able to do that, you can also use a compass with a pencil. So either a round circular object or a compass, any of these. Next, we need a black sketch pen or a gel pen. So that's a gel pen and that is a sketch pen. So any of it, just a black sketch pen or a black ball pen or a black gel pen, anything with black ink would totally work. Okay. So these are all the materials that we need for today's class. I hope we have all discussed about the materials. We have also discussed the close substitutes of the materials. So in case you don't have the exact same materials, that's totally fine. I've given a good number of substitutes for your art materials and hence you can all take part in today's fun class. Okay, so now let's just get started. First, we'll take the circular object and a pencil. So whatever you're using, if you're using a bowl, if you're using the lid of a container, if you're using your mama's bangle, just take that object, that circular object, place it roughly at the center of the sheet. Roughly at the center of the sheet, just place it roughly at the center of the sheet and you need to draw a circle. I'm just making use of this tape roll and I've just drawn a circle over here with the help of the circular object. Here's a quick zoom in for you. That's a circle that I've drawn. Okay, so just place your circular object roughly at the center and just draw a circle. In case you're using a compass and a pencil, just place the point of the compass roughly at the center and just draw a circle which is of a size of about your mama's bangle, something which is a little larger. We are not drawing a tiny circle this time, a little larger in size. Okay, so that's the circle that I've drawn. I'll quickly take a little back to you. So just placing the circular object at the center, drawing a circle roughly at the center. Okay, roughly at the center part of the sheet, I've just drawn a circle with the help of a tape roll. Now, it's time to take a paint brush. So whatever brush, as I said, if you're using a flat brush or a round brush, just take that brush. And people who are using crayons, those are not using paints this time, you can skip this process, okay? So everybody who's using paints, you need to take your brushes, dip it into the water, dip your brushes into the water, and then just wet the area inside the circle. Don't use too much of water because then your sheets will start tearing up. Just take a little bit of water in your brush and just wet this area inside the circle. Don't move outside the circle. Just completely wet the area inside the circle. You may not be able to see this in camera, but I'm just wetting the area inside the circle with the help of a paintbrush dipped in water. Okay, just taking water and I'm just going to wet this area. Okay, so in case you haven't followed, here's a quick recap for you. That's the circle that we drew. Now, we're just going to take our paintbrush, we are going to dip it into water. You can remove the excess water if you want from your paintbrush, and then we just go over with the brush inside the circle. So we're just covering it up with water, just a little bit of water. Don't make too much use of water because, as I said, that will wet your sheet. Okay, so just a thin, good layer of water, not too much, just a little bit of water. Okay, just going to cover it up nicely with water. Make sure you're not moving out of this circle. Just give a good wet layer inside the circle. Now, just take your paints, just your watercolors or poster colors, whatever we are using. I'm using watercolors in this class. So, just wet the paint that you're going to use. So, I'm going to use a blue paint, blue watercolor paint in this class. Any shade of blue that you have, you can use that. In case you don't have a blue shade, you can also make use of any other shade that you want. It could be green, it could be yellow, it could be orange, any of it you want. Even if you want to use a pink color of watercolor paint, that would totally work as well. Okay, so we just need a single watercolor paint in this class. So any shade or any color of paint that you have, that would totally work. So just going to wet the color. Dip your brushes into the water and just wet the paint. Just wet the paint because all of your watercolors must be dry. So we need to activate those watercolors. And in order to activate those watercolors, we are going to add in some water to those paints so that they're wet and we can use those paints, right? So just add a little bit of water to your paints. Add some water to your paints, not too much, just a little bit of water to activate your colors. And now, all of y'all just first carefully observe how I start about with it. Okay, so all of y'all just carefully observe. I take a little bit of paint on the brush, that's a blue paint. I start from one side of the circle. So if you just have a look at this side of the circle, I'm starting with this area over here. I'm going to start from a side and I'm just starting with the dab process. So I'm not going too harsh with my brushes. I'm just dipping it slightly at the central area and it will start emerging, it will start blending with the paper because I've already had a wet layer of water. Okay, so this technique is called as the wet on wet technique. Since the paper is wet and we are placing the paint which is also wet on the paper. Okay, so we're using this technique called as wet on wet technique and we are going to just start by dabbing the brush in this manner. So we start from one side and then we are just creating these lines which are not particularly of any size or typical uh, shape. So just going to create this kind of a watercolor paint effect, and if you see, I'm just staying within the circle. I'm not moving outside this circle. I'm staying within the circle. Okay, so let's have a quick recap up till now. Let's have a quick recap until now. And we first start by taking some paint onto the brush, and we just create a line with the help of dabbing process. And we start from one corner. We leave a little bit of gap in between. So if you see this wide gap area, make sure you're also having this wide gap between the paints, between the lines that we are creating. Okay, and just simply dab the brush onto the paper. Just don't apply any kind of pressure with your brushes, because then it will just end up tearing your paper. Okay, and make sure you're staying within the circle. And I'm now taking a little bit of paint and I'm just following the same process of making these lines. And I start from one side again and then I give these lines. And I also have good amount of white spaces which are left in between. Okay, so make sure that there are some white spaces left in between. And also if you see the sides, the edges of this circle, I'm covering it completely with paint. So I'm not leaving any kind of white spaces at the edges of the circle, but somewhere in between I have some rough white spaces which I have created. Okay, so here's a quick recap for anybody who couldn't follow this. Let's start from here. We start from the edge. We start dabbing the brush in straight lines, somewhat straight or curved lines kind of. We leave a little bit of white spaces in between as well. And then we just go on to the other side and make sure that the edges of the circle, so if you see the edges of the circle right over here, they are completely filled with color. Only the middle section of the circle has these wide gaps. So all of you all make sure that you are also having some white spaces in between in the central area of the circle, but the edges need to be completely filled with circles. Okay, so just dab your brushes. And as I said, this is nothing but the wet on wet technique. So since the paper was also wet, first we started by giving a good layer of water to our paper, and then we proceeded with the paints. So since the paper was wet and the paints are also wet, this technique in watercolors is called as a wet on wet technique. Okay. So if you see, I've just completely filled the edges with paint and there's good white spaces in between. I'm leaving some white spaces in between. So just dab the paint where you want to just cover it up. Make sure the edges are clearly covered with paint. So if you see, I'm again going with the edges and giving it a good edge of paint. Okay. So if you just feel that you have completed it and the edges are also filled with paint, you can just wait for it to dry. Just a little moment. Okay. So if you're done with this thing up till now, you all can just wait for a moment till I'll quickly repeat a little bit for you. I'm just going to cover up the edges with paint and I still leave these white spaces in between. Okay. So these are looking nothing but something like dark clouds to us. Yes, rough kind of loose clouds to us. And make sure you're within the circle that you created. Don't move out of the circle. Give a good edge of circle with paint. Okay. You can now clean your brushes. You can just clean it nicely with water. water. You can dip your brushes into the water and clean it nicely, and also keep your paints aside now because we're done with whatever we had to do with paints. Okay, so you can just keep your paints aside. You can keep your water container aside so that when you're drawing, you don't just end up spilling that glass of water on your artworks. Okay, so just keep your paints and your water container aside now. Okay, so just going to keep it aside. It's time to take a black sketch pen or the black gel pen, whatever you're using. If you're using a black sketch pen or a black gel pen or a black ball pen, and in case you're not using any of these black inks, if you're even using any other color of sketch pen, it's time to grab those now. So it's fine if you're not having the same black sketch pen or the black ball pen. You all can also use any color that you want. So I'm going to make use of this black gel pen over here. And now, all of you all just carefully observe this thing because since your central portion is dry, not dried now, it might be still wet. For some of you all, it might have dried. For some of you all, it might still be wet. So just make sure that you're not touching the edge of the circle while you're drawing something around it. So we're going to create something around it right now. So just make sure that you're leaving a little bit of gap while drawing it so that your black ink doesn't spill onto the central section that we have created right now. Okay, so just first carefully observe this. We're going to start by creating something around it. That something would be nothing but a mandala now. So we're just starting with a leaf shape. We are all almost aware about this leaf shape by now. We had good number of classes where we have just made use of the same kind of a pattern. So I'm just going ahead with the same technique of drawing this leaf shape, and I'm going to go around this central section and I'm going to draw these leaf shape around it. Okay. So keep rotating your sheet. Make sure that the palm is not touching the central section. So by the time we're just drawing this outer pattern, it might be possible that the central area gets dried. Okay, so just go about with these leaf shape around the circle now. Just simply draw these two curved lines of these leaf shape. So if you see, I'm just going around with the same leaf shape pattern all around the circle, the watercolor circle that we created. Okay, so keep rotating your sheets as I said and just start drawing these leaf shape around the central circle that we have drawn. Okay, don't worry if you have not completed it up till here. That's totally fine as well. I'm going to take you a little back in case you couldn't follow this. Okay, let's start from here. So I started by creating some leaf shapes around the circle. Just two simple curves with a pointed edge. That's the leaf shape, the leaf pattern that we are drawing around it. And I'm just going to follow the same pattern around the circle. Okay. Just going to follow the same pattern, the similar pattern around the circle. So I'm almost reaching to the place where I started, the point where I started the leaf shape. Okay. So just the last one now. Okay. So that's the leaf shape that we have created around the central portion now. And now we're just going to give it a simple filler that we used to give. So inside this leaf shape, you might have a little bit of space or area remaining to fill up something inside it. So let's give it a good pattern as well. So I'm going to create, okay, filler, let's just connect these two leaf shapes with the help of a curved line. So I'm just going to connect these two edges of the leaf shape with a curved line. So in case you haven't followed this, here's a quick recap for you. So these 2 points of the leaf shape that we have, we are going to just connect it with the help of a curved line. Okay, and we go about with the same pattern for all the leaf shapes that we have drawn up till now. So I'm going to just join these two leaf shapes, all the two leaf shapes with the help of curved line, and I go about with the same pattern all over the leaf shape or the previous pattern that we have drawn. Okay, we're almost there. Just going to connect it nicely with the help of curved lines. Just going to simply connect these leaf shape with the help of curved lines. Okay, there we go. So again, in case you haven't followed it up till here, here's a quick recap for you. We are going to quickly join the two leaf shapes with the help of a curved line. You can see these are the two leaf shape. I'm just going to join it with the help of a curved line. And we follow the similar technique for the next layer, because we all know in a mandala patterns repeat themselves in a circle. So since we have started with this pattern in the next layer, we are going to make sure that this pattern is going to be followed at the same layer so that we have symmetry and we end up forming a mandala. Yes. So I've just completed drawing these curved lines to join the leaf shape, the previous petal. Now, as I said, you all must be having a little bit of space inside these leaf shapes. Let's give it a quick filler. I'm going to draw a turning line, a straight vertical line, and I'm going to give these diagonal lines at one side. So this is again the pattern that we have also made use in our previous classes. I'm going to just give it a vertical line in between, divide it into two, and then I'm going to give these slant lines. So same for the next leaf shapes as well, and we follow the similar filler for all the leaf shapes now. So draw a straight line and give these diagonal lines on one side. Just like the veins of the leaf that we have, we're just going to draw these diagonal lines, these slant lines on one side. So draw a straight line in between and then draw these diagonal lines on one side. Okay, so we have to follow this for all the leaf shapes in the same layer that we have drawn. The same layer of leaf shape, we have to follow the same filler for all of these. I'm just going about with the same filler, drawing a straight line first, just a straight line in between, and then I'm drawing these diagonal lines on one side. Okay. If you want, you can also give any other kind of filler that you want. You all must have mastered the technique of drawing patterns by now, but I'm just going to go about with a simple pattern this time. I'm just drawing a straight line in between and giving these diagonal lines on one side. Drawing a straight line again and these diagonal lines on one side. So if you could see, the central portion must have also dried up till now. The paints must have got dried up till now. In case they haven't, that's totally fine as well again. You can just turn on your fans or even the air conditioners if you want to just make the drying process a little quick. If it's possible, you can just turn on the fan so that the central watercolor section is completely dry, because we still have something to be done at that central area. So just make sure that it's dried before we get there. So on to the last one now, drawing a straight line and then giving these diagonal lines on the other side. Okay, so I'm done with the first layer of this leaf shape and I've given a simple filler to it as well. Don't worry if you have not completed it with me right now. It's totally fine. You can carry out at whatever step you are at. Don't rush the process, as I say every time. It's totally fine if you do not complete this artwork by the end of this class. You can also complete it once the class is done and then make your submissions. Okay, so do not hurry up the process. It's totally fine if you have your own speed at it. Okay, just make sure that you're neat at your works and you're not hurrying the process. Okay, so I'm just done with the first leaf shape and the fillers. And now just in between the two leaf shape inside the curved line, I'm going to draw these tiny circles. So just taking you a little step back to show where exactly I am drawing these tiny circles. So that's the first circle that I've drawn. So if you see, these are the two leaf shapes. We connected these leaf shapes with the help of this curved line, and I'm just drawing the circle inside these curved lines. So make sure you're inside this curved line and drawing a circle inside this area. Okay, so it's a tiny circle just inside this curved line. So again, we follow the similar process, the same technique, just the same technique for all the tiny circles now. Just the similar technique, drawing tiny circles. Just going to draw these tiny circles inside the curved area, inside the curved line that we drew. I'm a little quick at this step, and then because it's just a tiny circle, in case you don't have adequate space, enough space inside these curved lines, you can skip this process and leave it simply the way it is. Okay, just taking you a little back. Okay, so if you see, I'm just drawing these circles inside the curved line that I've drawn. I'm just almost done with this. Okay, just going to complete this. Okay, so I'm done with giving these tiny circles inside the curved line at the second layer of it as well. And now we have just given this mandala pattern around the central section that we have drawn. So just check out if your central area is dried. Just you could dab your fingers around it, over it, just to check if it is dried. Mine have dried up till now. So just carefully listen to me. In case this portion is not dried for you, in case the central section where we just painted is not dried up till now, you need not follow this process now. You can just watch this process right now. What am I doing over here? And then once it is dried, just follow the same procedure. Okay, so just do not use your any kind of sketch pens or ball pens on that wet surface. Just make sure that the central area, the paints are dried well enough before you follow these next steps. Okay, so in case it is not dried, I repeat, if it is not dried, you skip this process. You just observe this process right now, and once it is dried, you can then carry out the same process. Okay. So since mine is dried right now, I'm going to draw something inside this watercolor area. So we are going to draw something inside the central watercolor section. So let's get started now. So I'm just starting from the bottom edge of the circle. I draw a slant line. Just next to it, I draw another slant line. And then the next as well. If you see, I'm just trying to create these lines which are kind of meeting at the center. They're not actually meeting at a point, but they all seem to reach at a certain point. So if you just see the slope of this line, just look how I've just drawn this line. So this is slightly slant and then I stop. The next line is at a distance from the previous line, but it's kind of meeting at the same point of the previous one. Look at the distance between the two lines at this section and look at the difference in line in this section. Okay, so we're just going to make sure that the distance on the start point of this line, this area where the cursor is moving, is little lesser than the space or the distance that we have in between the lower edge of the circle or the lower edge of the line. Okay, so I'm going to quickly take you back. So once it is dried, you all can just start drawing along with me now. Just draw one line first. Okay, take a pause, have a look. I've just started from one end and then I'm just going to draw this line. So you all can again observe this. Just draw a line, then draw another line, draw the third line now, and then the fourth line. Okay, so just taking you a step back again, just start by drawing the third line there and the fourth line now. So look at the three lines up till now, and this is the fourth line that I've created, and then the last line. Start from the first line from one side and give these diagonal lines just like we have the Christmas tree or the Xmas tree. So just going to draw these curved lines around right up till the bottom. Okay, so don't worry, I'm going to repeat this process again. So I'm just going to draw these curved lines, rough curved lines around the central line that we have drawn, the stem of the leaf, the stem of the tree that we have drawn. So that's the central portion, the branch of the tree that's tall. We're just drawing these pine trees. So we're just drawing these leaves, something like the Xmas trees, the Christmas trees that we have. So we're just going to draw these simple curved lines around the central line that we drew. So just have a look at how I move this pen. So make sure that you're also using a black sketch pen for this area and just go about with these curved lines around the stem of it, the branch of the tree. Just follow the similar process, the same technique, the same process again. Okay, almost there. And the same for the last area. So just roughly draw these curved lines around the central line. The same on the opposite side as well. Okay. So just going on with the opposite side as well. So I'm done with creating these trees at the bottom section. And if you want, you can also add a tiny moon at the top section. That is completely optional again. I'm going to just add this moon at the top section. Okay, so I hope you have followed this process. For the people, for all of you all who have the central portion which is dried, I hope you all have also drawn this along with me. For people who still have their central portion wet, you all can just wait till the central portion is dry, the paint is dry, and only then move about with your drawing the trees and the moon. Okay, so we are just done with this part. So now we are just going to cut this out. We are going to make it a cutout, and in case this thing again, if it is not dried, you all can skip this process. Just wait for it to completely dry and then you can just follow this process. Okay, so start by cutting one edge of it. So we are just going to cut it in a way that we have the minimum wastage of paper. So we are going to cut it out and there would be a little wastage of paper, but we just make sure that we're not wasting too much of it. If you see, I just start by cutting the top edge in a way that I can again use it later for any of my work. So make sure you're also cutting it in a similar manner so that you have less of paper wastage. The same on the lower side again. I'm going to cut it out in a way that I can use these two corners of the sheet. Okay. And then I'm going to start by cutting out the edges. So I'm also moving it in the circular curved area as well. In case you're finding it difficult to cut it this way, you can take help of any of your elder ones and just ask them to cut this out for you. Okay, so I'm just going to cut this out with the help of scissors. So just going about with the curved area, I'm going to give it a curved cut now. Just following this process, give it a good cut around the last layer. So again, as I said, it could be a little difficult for you to cut this out. Make sure that you're all following the safety measures. If you find this to be too sharp, just make sure that you are taking help of somebody to just cut this out for you. Okay, if you find this to be difficult or if you feel that you're not able to do this, you can just take help of anybody around you, any of your elders, just ask them to cut this for you. And then you all can just make use of it the way you want. So I'm just reaching the end portion of it. Okay. So I'm just done with making a cutout of this. So this is basically a bookmark that we have created, which is circular in shape this time. So I've just made a circular bookmark. So you can use it for any of your books that you read. And that's a bookmark that we created in today's class. So I hope all of you all enjoyed making this mandala watercolor bookmark with me. We explored the watercolors in first portion of this class. We learned about the technique of the watercolors, that is the wet on wet technique. We also fused our mandalas with this watercolor technique, and then we just made up a nice circular cutout bookmark for all of us. So I hope all of you all enjoyed making this bookmark with me. And yes, so quickly give me a thumbs up if you're all going to make your submissions right on time. I want all of you all to make your submissions right on time. I'm going to go quickly after this class to check all of your submissions. So for anybody who couldn't just follow the same process because the paint wasn't dried, I hope all of you all are going to just carry out the same process now. Complete all of your bookmarks and then you can make your submissions. Okay. So I hope all of you all enjoyed this session, had fun in this overall course, and I'll see you super duper soon with yet another course and yet another class and sessions. Okay, so till then, till the next time that we meet, please take care of yourselves, stay creative, enjoy all the hobby classes on YOLO. Okay, I'll see you in the next class. Bye bye.
Hi everyone, we are excited to have you here in today's fun-filled learning session at YOLO. Here is a quick look at how you can submit your work after the class. As a first step, Go to live.yolo.com. You can use any browser to access this site. On this page, you will see a list of all our classes. Scroll down and you can see the Submit Your Work button. And then you will see a list of the classes that you've last attended, which could, for example, show the dance or craft or science experiment classes you've attended recently. Next, it will show you the list of children whose names are registered in this mobile number. Choose your name from this list to submit your work. For instance, if you are Satvik Kumar, choose that name. And then choose the class for which you would like to make your submission. For example, if you've attended the New Year's Masquerade Party session and you'd like to make the submission for this class, click on the Submit Your Work button below that. And then upload the photo you've taken. Choose the image from your phone and click Submit. You can scroll down and view all your past submissions and see how many of your friends or peers have liked your work. You can also see others' work and like their work to inspire your friends. If you want to showcase your work on social media, that too is very simple. Click on Share, copy the link and post it on Instagram or Facebook or any other platform of your choice. Just a tiny reminder, your submission looks a lot better if you could click a photo in the landscape mode rather than the portrait mode. Do not forget to tag us at YOLO_app. I'm eagerly looking forward to all your submissions